As with most museums in France, they're closed on Tuesday. But this is, looks like there's some kind of a interpretive thing on Darwin perhaps inside here, so that might be fun. This is the Archaeological Museum, and apparently it's open all the time, so we'll see if it is. Nimes Dumas. I wonder if that's related to the Dumas, on the assumption that a V is written as a U, is really a U. Alexander Dumas. It's interesting to see with these pots that are all broken and have been restored. That's the reason, one of the reasons you pay archaeologists to do that for the benefit of society, so we can see what these things actually look like. This is a pre-Roman masculine torso. You can see how simple it is, and yet cleanly done it looks like looking at the shoulder there. Perhaps more in the style of the really old statues that the Louvre shows, apparently, that look more rigid. A model of the early Roman walled city. And that is the original design of Maison Carrée that I was in yesterday, but only that center building exists today, which is still a good thing. Actually, the stones from the whole thing exist, but they're probably inside all of the different old buildings, homes, and so forth. This also is a pre-Roman sculpture. Again, a certain rigidity. The neck, for example, is rather large compared to this skull. But I'm only reflecting style differences that I can notice. They're almost cartoonish in nature. When I look at these monuments in stone, this carving, the incredible skill and elevation of the state of the art, I wonder what it is that will be the artifacts of our civilization a few thousand years from now. Will it, for example, be a piece of software and maybe a video illustrating what it did? Will it be an iPod type thing, illustrating how in this age of ours we had all the music ever created on a single little handheld device? Will our movies be one of those artifacts? Maybe the first really great animated or computer generated movie? You have to remember too that this was an even earlier age of mass. Mass referring to the weight, the composition, the material of things that a society generated. Whereas our society primarily generates, as its great monuments, software. This looks like a piece of modern work, perhaps a reproduction. It'd be interesting to see, because I've wondered how the Romans did it, how they get those perfect straight lines and beautiful straight curved edges, for example. Again, the floor or wall tapestry, I don't know which, the whole slab has been moved to this position. But how elegant this would be in a modern home. If you could afford to have it created. Although we might find a way to computer generate it. I doubt it. The whole industry supported this, and a whole craft of artisans. Here what looks like a gladiator scene. Gladiator on the right. Well, and a chariot rider, and obviously a victim. The victim doesn't look like it was dressed for war, so maybe it was just one of the Christians slaughtered. Various columns with their messages. Even today, we don't normally inscribe something on a column like that. We'll make a brass plate and attach it. These are indicating the tools and the materials of the violin maker. Notice the small lathe. And then notice how the designs are laid out on the wood. And voila. Much of what here is are monuments of burial monuments, gravestones. I'm not recording much because it's all redundant to what I've seen. This is a more realistically sized sarcophagus, beautifully carved. And I'm saying that not because I'm knowledgeable, but just because of all of the work that seems to be there. These look like early knitting needles. If I notice that little, I think that's a hooked end. I think these are bracelets. Couchette, C-O-C-H-E-T-T-E-E. They were probably brass. It's interesting, they were hollow. Apparently these are meteorites from the meteorite hole in Arizona. I didn't realize tribolites got that large. Those are about 10, 11 inches long and about 6 to 7 inches wide. That's a nice specimen of a something or other from the Devon period. Devon Superior, which must mean the high end, 365 MAs. Because you can actually see the skin configuration. Huh. I'm curious, the ends, but they're sharp. I wonder if they were used for feeding and so forth. Notice this is just the head of a fairly large creature, I would assume. And particularly notice that the eyes are generally on the top. It probably hung out on the bottom like a carp. The remains of a turtle from 300 to 280 million years ago. I'm assuming MA means millions of years ago. There's a fossil of the egg of a dinosaur about 70 million years ago. The irony of not born, yet born for immortality. This was Colonel Dumas, Colonel E. Dumas, 18, who's the head of the archaeology in Nimes. This is the jaw and the major tooth of the lion 45,000 years ago, which gives you an idea of what you would have confronted. A field microscope used by Emilien Dumas, archaeologist, Maytat. I think that these may be jewelry devices, or devices in general from I think it may have been the, I don't know. I think this is just a random display of things in the 18th century, 1855, that era. I don't give the date of this stone tools, but what's interesting here is how hooked they are. I haven't seen that before. Now these look like candle holders. The hook there on the left, upper left, would be how you hung it over something or jammed it into something. This one held a candle as well as incense. I guess that would be. Interesting to see on this pot the what look like handholds. Look like a certain amount of decoration to it. Not so much for carrying, such as the one on the lower right, but the one on the lower left more for adjusting it, perhaps when you're flooring it. This part of the museum, it deals with the Orient. 19th century. These would be puppet-like things. You see the long arms or things attached to the hands. Look at the fine work in what would appear to be the skirt or the kimono of this puppet. My first reading of the contents of this room is too limited. It includes everything in the Orient, including, for example, these spears from Caledonia. And it looks like some kind of either battle axe. I'm sure it's a battle axe. I'd like to think it was for planting corn, but somehow I don't think so. Would that ever do a number on your head? And these from New Guinea. Look at the four-pronged one up there for fishing. I can only imagine what that terrifying looking thing there with a very sharp point on it was for. Some kind of ceremonial mask. These are from Africa. I don't know what they are, but I just noticed how beautifully worked they are, whatever they are. Interesting to imagine the level of skill in the men that threw these, that owned these. And it just refers to Black Africa. That from the Congo. Most everything here looks pretty like we'd expect primitive, but look at this carving on an animal tusk. And the same thing here. Is it a woman? Is it pregnant? What is the stylings that go on here? The subtle things that we can't appreciate because they're cultural. Look at the detail in these vases. It's interesting how important art and religion become as man evolves out of barbarian primitivism. Some kind of a drum. It would be interesting to see hear a skilled person at its time, this was 1927, play this. Further into Africa. Different kinds of turtles found in the Chelonians, whatever that is. I've always had a special affection for turtles when I used to collect them as a kid. My dad helped me build a little pond in the backyard for the ones I would catch. That's what we used to call a box turtle in there. And then the revulsion I felt when I found a big turtle that some boys had just smashed in the skull of. I've seen the giraffe, but never seen the skeleton. This looks like it has to be a relatively small giraffe. I wonder what those little knobs are. Are they vestiges? Do they keep it from falling backward somehow? And here you see little knobs here. That's how in the French language the bat is referred to as a vulgaire. The Roman lamp. Will Thomas Edison's light bulb ever be trumped? And even if it is, certainly that has to be one of the great hallmarks of our era. A candelabra, Roman. detail of the work. Another lamp. The entire section of this part of the museum, this entire section of the museum is devoted to lamps and lighting. And here how poignantly they've contrasted what we have today with what was used then. These might have been ordinary ones for ordinary people. And these would have been the first kind of lamps, earliest kinds. These are Egyptian lamps. That's a Roman lamp there with the 5 ports. Some more variations. A boat. And this a vegetable basket with 2 lamps on it. We see one of these in a picture and assume all the lamps look the same, but just like our culture, anything that's used by many oftentimes has many varied designs to it. But here they were intended to be art in the sense of portraying something, an animal, an idea. This one looks as though a man has been attacked by a lion, a couple of lions. And of course the gods had their representations. And the gladiator, as popular as that was, reflects many scenes. Moment of victory. These are some elegant ones made from, well, nothing if they're elegant, they're made from metal. And some of the tools that were probably used with them, I don't know what that is. This is kind of pretty here, particularly if it was all polished up. This one looks like a shoe on some kind, maybe an ice skate is what it looks like. And this little one was apparently some kind of a candelabra. If you're wondering about all the horn blowing, very rarely do people blow their horns, but someone has jammed up the road and just left it that way, and so everybody's really ticked off and the traffic's starting to pile up. Now these are African lamps, but I suspect what they mean is Roman African from the 4th century and the 5th century. This is cute. It's a little model showing how lamps were used in a house. You can see there were quite a number of them. You'd think there'd have to be. And things were probably pretty darn dark. Not to mention the fact they're sucking in all that fumes. Here's a model of Portugal, which I will visit probably tomorrow. I'm not exactly sure what this is without being able to read the French, but I think that it may be a device that was used to put wet pottery into a kiln. You can see the wheelbarrow type handles for moving this heavy thing, and then the ring handles and those square devices maybe were for lifting it with some kind of lever into place and then swinging it over into the kiln. And I'm assuming these are early glass as opposed to the pottery. How it was made, I don't know. I'm not sure how glass is made now. Except I see it heated and then blown. But there must be faster ways of doing it. There's some coloration. How pretty these are. I don't know what these are. They're pretty. The card mentions souffle, but I don't know if it had anything to do with food or not. These are the interiors of the aqueduct when it ran through the city, I suspect, as opposed to above ground. A view of the Castellium, which we saw yesterday. This is a model of the arena. It'll be interesting to see how it compares to the arena itself, which I should go to later today. Here are some smaller lead pipes that we saw of similar design to the ones we saw in Ireland. Probably makes sense. Could be different sizes, same as we do. This is Venus, 1835. You always wonder whether the artist had a particular woman in mind, or did he create an eclectic woman for the women he knew. This is apparently a woman dancing. This is the face of Minerva, Minerve. What does her expression tell you about the person? Anything? Of course, it's a reflection of what the artist thinks it tells him or her. Is that the Roman nose? Did the Statue of Liberty's spiked headdress come from this concept? This is a medallion representing gladiatorial combat. Interesting enough, it's probably a diameter of about 8 inches. Reminds me of a cowboy's belt buckle.